Okay, good morning, everybody. So let us continue. So yeah, we were discussing support vector machines. So let's continue from that point. So so we were discussing so in the support vector machine, the central idea that is there is to try and find as large a margin as possible, right? So the first variant that we are studying is only for linearly separable data. So which means there exists a hyperplane which can separate both the positive and negative points, right? So yi's are first of all either -1 or 1. So in this support vector machine development, whatever we will do, we will assume that yi's are -1 or +1. Okay, and linearly separable data just means that there exists a W such that W transpose Xi plus B. Okay, so typically we don't write like this. We write it as W transpose X and augmented feature vector X. That is what we used to do. But in the context of support vector machine, instead of writing W transpose X tilde greater than 0, I'm just writing the intercept term also. Okay, so W transpose Xi plus B is greater than 0. W transpose Xi plus B is less than 0 if Yi is equal to +1, if Yi is equal to -1. So what is this? This is the definition of linearly separable data. Okay, linearly separable data is equal to if there exists this, right? So this is what is linearly separable data. So the first variant of support vector machine that we will be studying is with the example that we are given input data which is linearly separable. Okay, and the idea is we would like to find out, like amongst all points, we would like to find out the largest margin. Okay, so we wrote the SVM primal. So the margin yesterday when we did this, so it was given, we got this as 1 over norm W. So we would like to maximize the margin subject to the constraint that yi times W transpose Xi plus B is greater than or equal to 0, is greater than or equal to 1 for all epsilon, for all I in the data set, right? You remember this? So what we had is, you had some data points. So let us mark the data points. These are all the positive points. And suppose these are all the negative points. Okay, so we would like to find a margin. So margin is the biggest thing that you can separate all the data points with. Okay, these three hyperplanes, this outer one is W transpose X plus B is equal to 1. This one is W transpose X plus B is equal to 0. The inner one is W transpose X plus B equal to -1. Right? All the negative and the vectors that which, so this these are the margins, right? And they rest on some input training points. They are, you can push the margin all the way till the boundaries of the margin, the fence, right? The extreme edges, they touch one of the data points, and whichever they touch, they are called as the support vectors. Okay. So support vector, what is the definition? It is basically those training points. Okay, so that your margin. So this is a negative. Let me write this a little more legibly. So there is a negative point here. So the margin that I'm choosing actually rests on this data point. Okay, so these are called as the support vectors, and hence this algorithm is called support vector machine. And the margin that we are speaking about, so this is the margin. Okay, so we would like to maximize the margin subject to actually clearly putting all the data points in two different half spaces, and the half spaces themselves are separated with a margin. Okay, so sometimes some textbooks call this as the margin, sometimes this twice this is called as a margin, but any case it is symmetric. So this distance is equal to this distance, and we computed yesterday that the margin is 1 over W. So maximizing the margin is equivalent to minimizing the reciprocal of this. Okay, and minimizing the reciprocal is same as minimizing half W transpose W, subject to the constraint that yi times W transpose xi plus b is greater than 0 for all I in the data set, input training data. Okay, so just to ask a thing. So I have, so this one W transpose. Okay, so first question, what are all the, so in the chat, can you type, what are all the optimization variables? What are all the variables that we are optimizing over? It is a minimization, all right, but it's a minimization over what? What is it that we are minimizing over? Can you type it in the chat? Yes. Okay, so it is W as well as B, okay, because B also we don't know, correct? So the B nobody is supplying. What is given to us is only the training points, which is this and this, okay, and I made a mistake, not very surprising. I should have written this as 1, okay. So for those of you who said just B, is it okay? Sakar, Siddharth, all of you now realize that Bhavana, there is a B also required. Is it okay? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now, so this is our SVM primal. And now we need some way in which we can solve it. Okay, so for this purpose, yesterday we just, I just gave a quick intro on the optimization, like a small intro on the optimization portion that is required. So let us just again go through over it so that it becomes very clear. Okay, so we will do that very quickly, and I will ask you all the steps from you itself. Okay. So let us first try to remember what we had studied. So we will categorize all our things. Okay, so first is we will divide the screen into 3 parts. Okay, so 4 parts actually. Okay, and we will first, so we will look at convex, then we will look at concave, then we will look at neither convex or concave, right? Neither convex or concave. Okay, or in general, these are all general functions. So convex optimization problems, the objective is convex as well as the constraints are convex sets. Okay, so in that sense, the objective, let us focus on the objective of a convex program looks something like this. The objective of a concave program looks something like this. Neither convex or concave is like some such thing, right? Now let us first ask what we know in the space of unconstrained optimization. Constrained. Okay, so my objective, this is my f of x. Okay, all these are f of x. So suppose gradient f of x is equal to 0. Okay, so suppose there is a point where gradient fx equal to 0. So because it is a convex function, what can we say? Yes.
Global minimum.
Yeah, this will be global minimum. Okay. Now that is now this is one way. So if there is a global minima, can we say that the gradient fx equal to 0? Does that imply gradient fx equal to 0? Fx star equal to 0? Yes, no?
Sir, if it is strictly convex, then yes.
So basically, let then speaking like this. So suppose I take this portion of the curve. Okay, so let us now I am optimizing not over the entire range, but I am optimizing over an interval. So basically, yeah, so it's unconstrained. Typically, we cannot impose such things. But suppose if I do that, if I just focus on this region, right? If I focus on this region, then what happens? The minima is here within this region. This is the minima, but the gradient need not be 0. Okay, so this is under the constraints like this need not be true. Okay, so this is not always true. Is that okay? Provided I have some constraint over which I can do, it's not completely unconstrained, then we can have these kind of problems. Siddharth?
Sir, but currently we are writing under unconstrained. No?
Yeah, we are writing under unconstrained. So in that sense, probably we should not do this. So we will just say, so constraint on the domain, right? On the constraint on the range. Is that range or range? Yeah, range of x. Then of course this can happen. Anyway, the point is, okay, let us continue in the same line. So again, for concave, gradient f of x star, if it is equal to 0, then we know that it is global maxima. Okay. And again, if you put constraint, then we always have that problem, right? So if you take a set like this and then you constrain on the range, so if you just look over that, then of course the gradient f of x may not be 0. So yeah, and in the neither convex nor concave case, if f of x star is equal to 0, then the output can be one of 3. Okay, so it could be a local maxima. Okay, it could be a local maxima like this, or it could be a local minima. So, you know, some function like this. So it could be a local minima, or it could be a saddle point. Okay, so these things can happen when it is neither concave or convex. Okay, so I'm just recapping this so that you also understand when KKT condition comes in, what happens. Okay, so now let us look at constraint optimization. So when you have constraint optimization, okay, so what is the typical constraint optimization? Minimize f of x subject to gi of x greater than or equal to 0 and some hi of x equal to 0. So yesterday I didn't speak of this, but let me, okay, perhaps for this class it is not necessary. So let us focus on simple things. And I belongs to some I is less than or equal to m. Okay, so there are m constraints here. So then what we said that so yesterday we did this. So we defined what is called as a KKT point, right? So KKT point satisfies several constraints. One is gradient f of x plus summation mu I gi of x, gradient gi of x. is equal to 0. This is 1. Okay, because the idea is when you try to minimize gradient f of x, okay, and if you are on the boundary of one of the GIs of x, so when you try to minimize this, you end up increasing this. So negative of gradient f of x should lie in the positive combination of GIs, gradient of GIs. So if you want to write it in a single equation, this is what it boils down to. Okay, so is there anyone who is not taking optimization here? I mean, Shivam is not here, so I'm asking if there is anybody else.
Yes, sir.
So Diksha, so if we change this minimization to maximization, will you be able to come up with the equivalent condition for this?
Sign changes.
Yeah, so correct, sign changes. So gradient f of x, that is the direction you would like to take. That should end up violating suppose some GI is on the boundary, right? So you should end up violating that. So gradient f of x should be equal to some mu I times gradient g of x, or in other words, this sign becomes negative. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so one way to handle that, Diksha, is like convert all your problems into this form and then refer this table, and then you can write. So whatever sign change you said is the correct idea. Okay. Yes. Okay. So then second condition is the x. So KKT point is defined for some point x star, let us say, which satisfies these 4 conditions. Okay. So gradient fx star, yeah, so this is equal to this. So this we have seen. Then we have also seen GI of x star should be greater than or equal to 0. This is like the point is primal feasible. Okay, which means it lies in this set. Okay, so that is what it means. Third one, it says the mu i's, right? So mu i's have to be greater than or equal to 0. So Diksha, you remember this, why this has to be greater than 0, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir, yesterday we had GI of x less than equal to 0, right?
Constant in the
yeah. So my mistake, right? So this has to, so this is, see, I should have, here it is greater, but in the standard form that we consider, it is less than or equal to. That's absolutely right. So thanks for telling, okay? See, it doesn't, like when I was explaining Diksha, like she told, it doesn't really matter which way you take, provided you take care of the sign here. Okay. So if it was greater than or equal to 0, there will be a negative sign here. Okay. So it's not really a big deal. Okay, let me just remind all of us how that came in. So you are basically trying to go in the negative gradient f of x direction. Suppose some g1x is equal to 0. So you cannot absolutely go above g1 of x, but the direction that you are taking, gradient f of x, this actually is equal to some mu1 times gradient g1 of x, right? So when this happens, when you try to take a step to improve your optimization objective, improve in the sense you want to reduce it, when you try to reduce it, you inadvertently increase the GI of x. So that is the intuition. Siddharth, I hope I didn't confuse all of you. It is okay, right?
Yes, sir, it's clear.
Yeah. So then this was the third constraint. So then the fourth constraint. So as an exercise, even though this is not in the purview of machine learning course, just try to see if I change all of this, how it works. Just as a mental exercise. I don't think it is too complicated. You can just think about it at all. You don't have to even write it. It's so simple. All right. And the fourth condition is called as complementary slackness. So what that says is mu I of GI of x is equal to 0 for all I, right? So if there exists a point which satisfies all of these constraints, okay, so that is a KKT point. And very analogously, how we had here, this implies, okay, so this implies global maxima. Okay, since we are talking, is it a global minima? Sorry, since we are talking about convex, it's global minima. And with some additional constraints, so plus if I add Slater's condition. So Slater's condition, remember, it just says that you have a solid interior. So if you visualize the region of X, which is where it is true. Anyway, for this course, it doesn't matter if you don't understand. So for this course, you just think that every global minima also is a KKT point. Just think about this way. So that's all is enough for this course. Okay. So this is the case for convex. For concave, if there is a KKT point. Okay. So we will say it is if and only if it is global maximum. Okay. So plus, let me just say global maxima with a star, which means the Slater's condition is true. And when you come to unconstrained, objective which is neither convex, concave, or in general form, then of course KKT point may not mean anything. Okay, again there are all these three possible variations, and if you really want to find which among the three is true, you have to look at second order information. Okay. So are there any questions in the discussion on the optimization itself, the optimization required for this class? Is this clear to everybody? Okay, nice. All right. So then moving on. So what you do, so let us copy over the KKT conditions and a few of these things. Let's just copy over. And the objective prop that we were considering is minimize f of x subject to equal to from 1 to m, something like this, right? So now here the objective variable is x. Okay, that's important. So why I'm emphasizing it is when you go to SVM, the objective variables are w and b. Okay, so yeah, so that is and in general, besides this constraint, x belongs to some RD, right? Some d-dimensional space. Everything is in some d-dimensional space. So yeah, so this is what we do. So let me just fill up some things here, 3 and 4. Now the thing is, if you can either take this directly, but if you look at this particular expression, right? So this particular expression is like the first order condition of unconstrained optimization. So if you think of this, you can think of a function which is L of x mu. Okay, consider this function. So f of x plus summation mu I of gi of x, right? So if you take the gradient of this function is called as the Lagrangian. Okay, so if you take the gradient of this, you will get this, right? So if you treat this as an unconstrained optimization with mu i's greater than 0, so the gradient of this actually turns out to be this, right? So these two are already captured in this kind of, if you try to optimize this. Right, so that is the idea we will use. So we will define what is called as theta of mu, which is inf over f of x plus summation mu I of gi of x. Okay, I equal to 1 to m whatever, and inf is taken over what? See, here only we are taking the gradient with respect to x. Okay, so inf x belonging to RD. Okay, now this particular number is always going to be lower than f of x. So this number, so if you think of it, right? So mu i's are greater than 0. Okay, and see here mu i's are greater than 0. Gi of x is a number less than equal to 0. Okay, so this can be negative. So this sum can be negative. It can never be positive. So if it is negative, it is a number smaller than f of x. Okay, and if I take x belonging to the whole range that I can take, then f of x is definitely a lower bound on this particular number. Okay, so that is why theta of mu is going to be a lower bound on f of x. Is that all right? So what we do, so we want to so imagine like a figure, like you have a function f of x. Okay, so instead of trying to find the minima like this, what I will do is I will take different lower bounds to that. Okay, and I will try to, so this is just a figure, just a diagram for you to keep in mind. It doesn't necessarily mean this is what exactly is happening, but this is the original thing. So this is original. Okay, and I am giving you various upper bounds, various lower bounds, right? So theta mu is a number which is strictly less than f of x, that you can see, because this is a negative number. It can never be positive, and f of x plus a number which cannot be positive is not strictly, but it's less than, it's a lower bound for f of x, right? And if you take infimum over all possible f of x, then it is a lower bound for even the optimum. So what I am saying is, as a function of mu, there are various lower bounds that I can come up with. So what lower bound I will choose is basically this. So I will maximize theta of mu subject to mu I is greater than or equal to 0. So this is called as a dual. This is called as a dual for the this primal problem. So this is the primal. See, this is a very difficult thing for you to understand if you have not taken optimization. I'm trying my best here. So I think the only person who can really ask me some questions here are those of you who are doing optimization, and even Diksha, because she's not doing optimization. So does this make sense, Diksha?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it is a idea that people have taken years to develop. Okay, so it is not that somebody came up with this over one assignment or one class or something. So it is if you find difficult to understand, that is because it is really difficult. Okay, but if you systematically think about it, it is something that you can understand and even hopefully start using at a later point. Okay, so just let me recap. So what we have is that these conditions, all the 4 conditions, Diksha, I hope this was clear to you, right? The
Yes.
KKT. Yeah, so now what we are doing is looking at this particular expression. We understand that this is like a gradient. If I say something is 0, that if gradient of some function is 0, that seems to give us an impression that there is some kind of an optimization problem that we can think of, right? And that particular optimization problem is this. So if you take the gradient of this with respect to x, you will get exactly this. Diksha, that's okay, right? If I take this function as an optimization of variable of over x, I will have to take the gradient over x. So that will give me this. Diksha, yes?
Yes.
So now I'm saying this one, if you really examine it, this is a function which is a lower bound to f of x. Okay. So as if mu is a parameter, depending upon the mu, it is either a big lower bound with lot of gap, or it is a lower bound with not much gap. So when this is a lower bound, I can try to find the maximum lower bound. Okay, thus amongst all lower bound, I can try to find the maximum, and hopefully what I will get is that this lower bound and the original function's minima, they will agree. Okay, so when that happens, we say that there is strong duality. Okay, and it turns out the SVM problem actually has strong duality. Okay, so instead of solving the primal, we can first write the dual of the primal, and instead of directly solving primal, we will solve the dual, and you will see there are like extremely strong reasons to solve the dual, because there are far more interesting things that are happening in the dual space. Okay, so yeah, so let me just try to write the dual for the SVM case. Okay, and now I will ask all of you to contribute. Okay, so let us start. So perhaps it's a good idea to take a new page. So let's, okay, we know what is the SVM primal. Okay, so maybe it is a good idea to, okay, let's write here because you need these things. Okay, so anyway, so coming to the SVM primal. So minimize over W and B. Please remember that f of x, I will write it as half W transpose W, and I want less than or equal to 0. Okay, so there it was greater than or equal to 1. So I want less than or equal to 0. So this will become 1 minus yi times W transpose xi plus B is less than or equal to 0 for all I that we know. I will not write that. Okay, so this is the primal. So yes, so I need people's help here. So what is the Lagrangian? At least tell the easy part of the Lagrangian, right? What is the function? Lagrangian is a function over what? What are all the three things that are part?
W transpose W is the first term.
Yeah, so before that, what is the variables in the Lagrangian?
X and mu.
W, right? X
W,
will be,
B and mu.
yeah, W, B and mu. Okay. So W, B and mu. See, X is a input. So this is not something that is there. Okay. So yeah, go ahead. So this is 1/2 W transpose W. What else? Yes.
Plus summation mu I times that 1 minus yi into
Yes.
W transpose xi minus plus B.
Yes. Okay. Very good. Okay. So this is what is a Lagrangian. Now, if you want to take the infimum, right? So we want to take the infimum of this and write what is theta of mu, right? So we have to take the derivative with respect to two things here. So the gradient of L with respect to W we have to take, and then gradient of L with respect to B. Okay, so what is gradient of L with respect to W? Okay, I know it is easy, but it will be nice if you can say, but okay. So yes, anyone wants to volunteer?
So W would be the first term.
Yeah. Yes, then come over inside. So Diksha, this is, this is W is a vector, right? So W transpose W is a number, but W transpose W behaves like your x square, right? When you take derivative of x square, you get 2x. So in the same way, W transpose W behaves as though it is a single x square. Okay. Yeah. So Diksha, if you have any questions, right, you can always schedule a meeting with me and I will explain these things in more detail. Okay. So yeah. So for all, not just Diksha, anybody who has not done optimization, if you need any help, I will be able to sit with you and help. Okay. So just you have to mail. That's all I'm asking. Okay. So go ahead. Yeah. So
minus summation.
Minus summation.
Mu I yi xi.
Yeah, so yeah, here, so basically mu I, that one doesn't, that goes away. So then coming inside, what we see is mu I yi W transpose xi is there. Yes, correct. So that will be mu I yi xi. Okay, very good. So xi, so here it is important that we understand W is a vector, right? So maybe if you all look at it, right, just get this clear. So this is I going from 1 to n data points that we have. W is a vector and xi is a vector. These are, so W comma xi, they are vectors. I hope you can understand. So this is a vector and this is set to 0, right? So this is the first condition. If you are trying to optimize over W and B, right? So you are trying to take the infimum over the optimization variables. Here the optimization variables are W and B. So you have to take the gradient with respect to the Lagrangian and set it to 0. So that gives us the first condition. W is equal to summation I equal to 1 to n mu I yi xi. Okay. So this is the first. So can we do the second one also? What is the gradient of the Lagrangian with respect to B?
Summation mu I yi.
Summation mu I by I. That's it. Okay. And no.
Yeah, minus.
Minus.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Minus because there is a minus yi. Okay. So now we are getting this. This is the first condition that we got. The second condition, when you set this equal to 0, we will get summation mu I by I equal to 0. Okay, so these are the two conditions that will be satisfied. If you are looking for theta of mu, it better satisfy these two conditions. Okay, so that gives us a way to write theta of mu in a simple way. So again, this is all things that you have seen in optimization, and I know that you have seen this in optimization because I was attending your class as well. So here your theta of mu will be half W transpose W plus summation mu I 1 minus yi times W transpose xi plus B, right? So this is what is the original thing, but I have to now plug in these things. So this will give me, so if we plug this in, so xi is a vector, right? So W transpose W, when I do xi and xj, all these things will be coming, right? So this will turn out to be, so if it was just one, it was easy, right? So if it was mu yix, it would have been mu one y1, mu2 y2, x1 transpose x2, something like that you would have got. But since there are like it's a summation of several vectors, right? So if you just do it carefully, it will be half double summation I going from 1 to n. This comes for the first W, and j going from 1 to n. This comes for the second W. What you will get? Mu I, mu j, yi, yj, xi transpose xj. Okay, just think about this a little bit. If you wish, you can write it down later, and then you can check that this is what you will get. Okay, so W transpose W. So the way to check this is you take W transpose W. W transpose W will be this, right? Summation mu I yi xi, I going from 1 to n, transpose summation j equal to 1 to n, mu j yj xj, right? So then you try to open this carefully. Remember that mu i's and yi's, they are single numbers. Xi and xj are the vectors. Okay, so this is what is you get. If you simplify properly, you will get that. So second thing then we will do is open this up also. So then, so let us try to see where mu I yi's come. So where does mu I yi's come? So you will get a mu I yi with this W transpose xi. So that you cannot do much because that, but if you look at the third term, mu I yi B, right? So if I just look at mu I yi B, so you have negative summation mu I yi, and B is something that is common. So you get a term like this for this multiplication, right? So that means that B drops out because mu I yi is equal to 0. Okay, so let us expand this. There will be a term like summation mu I going from 1 to n. That term will come here, minus mu I yi W transpose xi. Okay, W is nothing but this. So if we expand that, we will get double summation as before, I equal to 1 to n, j equal to 1 to n, mu I, mu j, yi, yj, xi transpose xj. Okay, but that is exactly same as this part. So there will be some more simplification that is happening. Okay, so are we done? Yes, we are, because mu I summation mu I is here. Mu I yi W transpose xi, W is given by this. So when you substitute this, you get this. And then there is mu I yi B. Mu I yi B, this is equal to 0, right? So that terms drop off. So ultimately, what we have got is we want to maximize, the dual will be maximize summation mu I going from 1 to n, minus half summation, double summation, I equal to 1 to n, j equal to 1 to n, okay, mu I, mu j, yi, yj, xi transpose xj, okay, subject to, okay, so we have to be careful because we have to ensure this continues to hold, okay, subject to summation mu I yi equal to 0 and mu i's are greater than or equal to 0. So this is our dual SVM. Okay. So yeah, so are there any questions in the algebra? Does everybody understand the algebra that I have done right now? Yes, can we have a quick poll in the chat? Okay. So now we are not yet done. We are done mostly, but we will get some more insights. Okay. So one of the conditions that I want you to remember is this complementary slackness condition. Okay. So what it is saying, let us try to write in the context of this fellow, right? So yeah, so let us write that. So let's write the complementary slackness in the context of SVM. So let me choose a different color for this. Okay, so what is it that we say? We say that mu I times, what is it going to be? What is this constraint equal to 0? Do you want me to scroll up a little bit so that you can see? Yeah, what is it going to be? So remember, right, what it was, mu I, so this is summation mu I gi, right? So I'm saying mu I gi is equal to 0. So what does complementary slackness say?
1 minus yi.
Yeah, so 1 minus yi times w transpose xi plus d, this is equal to 0. Okay, so this is true for the optimal point. Okay, so that's why we will put, there is like this optimal means mu I is already in the dual feasible thing and this is w star, b star. I'm not writing that, but understanding is that, right? So complementary slackness doesn't hold for every point. It holds only for the optimal point. Okay. So, question when is 1 minus yi w transpose xi plus b, okay, strictly greater than 0? When is this happening? Greater than? No, it is not greater than, less than 0, right? The constraint, so it's this way, right? So when is this strictly less than 0?
All points in the domain that don't lie on the margin.
Yes. So if it is strictly less than 0, so if you come back to the original problem, right? So it is exactly equal to 0 when you are lying in the margin, right? So when it's exactly equal to 0, yi times w transpose x plus b is equal to 1, correct? On these 2 points. Either it is equal to 1 or equal to minus 1, but since yi can be plus 1 or minus 1, this becomes 1. So when you are in the margin, you have equality, like no slackness. But if you are in the interior, the mu i's are 0. Okay. So basically, when is this equal to 0? This is equal to 0. Answer is when the particular training point is lying in the interior of the two half spaces, right? Okay, so what does complementary slackness say? Whenever this happens, what is the thing that we get? We have to get mu I times something equal to 0. I'm saying the inner fellow is less than 0. So what is happening?
Mu I will be equal to 0.
Yes, so this implies that mu I is equal to 0. Okay, so basically, when mu I is strictly greater than 0, okay, you get the support vectors. That particular training example is a support vector. And what is a support vector? Support vector is those vectors which lie on which touch the half spaces. Okay, which touch the lines. They are on the boundary of the half spaces, right? So if mu I is equal to 0, they are not the support vectors. And now we come to the a very interesting thing. So we know that W is equal to summation mu I by I xi, right? So W is equal to summation mu I by I xi. So in the optimal thing, when mu star you have achieved, right? So because of this condition, this has to be always true. Okay, when we have optimality, okay, so what we get, W star is equal to summation mu I yi star, okay, mu I star yi xi. And the important thing is I belongs to a set called as S, where S is equal to set of all i's such that mu I is greater than 0. Okay, so what that means is that I am able to get W as some linear combinations of the xi's. So what are the xi's? So the xi's are these points. Okay, so if you come back to the original thing, I am able to get my entire support vectors just based on the 2 points, right? So just based on these 2 points, I can get W. Similarly, I can get B also. So let us do that. So how do we get B? So we have to take, there are several ways in which you can get B. All you do is take one of the support vectors, and we know that 1 minus yi W transpose xi plus B is equal to 0, right? So let us say how to get B. So first is, how do we get W star? W star is easy. W star is equal to summation I belonging to S mu I yi star xi, right? This is easy. So to get B star, okay, B star, if you want to get B star, pick some j belonging to S, right? Somebody whose mu I is strictly greater than 0. Once we know that the jth point is a support vector, what do we know? We know that 1 minus yj W transpose xj plus B, right? This is equal to 0, we know. So now we can do some simplification. We will get minus yj W star transpose xj plus B is equal to minus 1. Okay, multiplying both sides with minus yj, right? So so what are all the possible values y can take? Yj is either 0 or it's either minus 1 or plus 1. Okay, but yj square is always 1, right? So if I multiply everywhere with yj, I will get minus yj, I will get W star transpose xj plus B equal to minus 1 into minus yj. So I'm multiplying this with minus yj. So I will get yj, right? So B is equal to yj, B star is equal to yj minus xj transpose W star. I just interchange it because it doesn't look nice, W star transpose xj. So I will write it like this. So what is j? J belongs to one of the support vectors. You pick any support vector you like and you can do this. So are we done? Is there anything that we need to do? So all we have to do is we have to solve this dual SVM. This dual SVM is an instance of what is called as quadratic programming. Okay, it's a QP and you can solve it. You will get mu stars. Once you get mu stars, you can construct a support vector set like this, which is a collection of all the points where it is greater than 0. Okay. And those support vectors, once you have your optimal W star is some linear combination of those support vectors. Okay. Mu star, you know, Yi's, you know, Xi, Xj's, you know, so you can get this. Okay. So then once you get W star, you can also get B star. So now all we need to do is describe how you will use this algorithm. So once you have W star and B star, right? So W star and B star, suppose I give you a test point. Okay, so test point is xt. So what you will do, compute so W star transpose xt plus B star. Okay, if this number is greater than or equal to 0, then you will report 1. Okay, so if this is greater than 0, you report 1. If this is less than or equal to less than 0, then you report -1. So this is our final usage of this algorithm. Okay, so let me just quickly go through it. So what we did was we took the primal SVM, we used the ideas from optimization where we take the dual of the SVM in this manner. Okay, and we came up with the dual SVM. The idea is you can always, once you have the dual vectors, the support vectors, you can always represent in this manner your optimal hyperplane. Okay, W star is some linear combination of all these points. Okay, and you can get B star. So this is how we do it. And I don't know if there are any questions, you can just ask me now. Is this clear? I don't know. For those of you who are doing optimization, it should be much better. But for Diksha and others who are not doing optimization, I don't know. So how is it? Is it clear? Do you understand all these steps? Yes? No? Can I have a quick chat? Siddharth?
Sir, it's mostly clear to me.
Okay.
Sir, can we go to the steps? I just
Yeah. So let us start from the beginning. So so basically this is the primal SVM. Siddharth, we write the Lagrangian like this. This is okay.
yes, sir.
And then we take the variables. The primal variables are W and B, not X. So that's why we need to take the derivative with respect to W and B and set it to 0. Okay. So this is like trying to find the infimum. So when you want to find the infimum, you need to take the gradient with respect to X. So in the same way, we are taking gradient with respect to W and B. Okay. So when you take with respect to W and B, you get these two conditions. So for every theta mu that you are constructing, these two better be true. That is what we are saying. Siddharth, this is okay, right?
Yes, sir.
So then we just substitute. So we just take wherever W we have got an expression, we put back whatever we have learned, we put back in that, and we write this. So when you put this back, this leads to this. This step, is it okay?
Yes, sir. That's also fine.
Yeah, and summation mu I, that's okay. And then why this is this step you follow, Siddharth? This is just yeah, W is nothing but summation mu I yi xi. So when you do this, you get this, right? So,
yes, sir.
And mu I yi b, that is 0, because b is a single number. You can always take it outside, and then you will get summation mu I yi. So that is anyway 0. So that third term, the b drops off. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
And that's it then. So if you follow all the steps, then this is what it is. So
I just wanted to ask here that we'll solve this dual SVM.
yeah.
Then the mu and y which we get for the optimal case.
But y, once again, y is not a part of the optimization. Y is given to you. Okay.
Yes,
correct,
sir.
correct. Yeah.
Yes.
So whatever mu star you get, that will be a KKT point. So because we are in the world where Slater's condition is true, KKT point is optima, and any optima is same as this. So dual and primal, they agree. You have strong duality, which means primal is equal to the dual optima, as well as the variables that are there, they together will form KKT point. Right, Siddharth, do you remember this from?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I remember this.
Yeah. So then once that is true, what else, Siddharth? So
Yes, sir. So when we get the mu stars, then we'll construct our W and
yeah. So once you get mu stars, once you have solved it, so I should say here mu stars are greater than 0. Once you get the mu stars, so yi star I have written like an idiot. So let me just make it as yi. Okay. So once you get mu star, your W star is a linear combinations where the weights are given by mu star. Is that okay, Siddharth?
yes, sir.
And what to solve for B star, I know that for all support vectors, this particular thing is equal to 0, correct? Yes.
Mhm. Yes, sir.
So-
Then we'll construct a B from that and
Yeah.
that's complete then.
Yeah. So you got W star and you got B. And then once you are given, how do you use it? Given a test point. Now for test points, we cannot demand that it will be greater than 1 or less than 1. That is too much to ask. So we will just do greater than 0 and less than 0. Okay.
Yes, sir. It's clear.
Yeah. So, one thing about SVM, which is what makes it very useful, is that it. Okay, we will discuss that. I have to take one more class, guys. I'm so sorry, but I have to take because there are important things about kernel SVM that I need to teach. So, yeah, there are a few things that I still need to teach. So I will definitely wrap up tomorrow, but there is something I still need to teach, and I don't want to rush through this because it's so useful. So there are some very useful properties of SVM which I will just state without proof. Okay, but since it is important, we will spend some time tomorrow and complete it. So there are two things that we still need to talk about. One of the things is so let me talk one of the things and just a little bit briefly, and then tomorrow we will continue. So one thing is in the primal SVM, so if you remember, so the first thing that we discussed was hard margin SVM. Okay, hard margin SVM, this works only for linearly separable data. So which means I will look at half W transpose W subject to yi times W transpose xi plus B greater than or equal to 1, right? So this is what we said is a hard margin SVM. The corresponding dual is maximize maximize summation mu I, okay, and minus half summation mu I, double summation mu I mu j yi yj xi transpose xj, right, subject to summation mu I yi equal to 0, and the second one is mu i's are greater than or equal to 0. So this is the hard margin SVM. Here, if you draw the so let me just copy that because I cannot keep drawing this. Okay, so here what we are saying is there is no data point lying in this margin, right? So this is like the data has to be linearly separable. But if we have a few points like this, suppose my data points are such that there is one negative point here and one positive point, let us say somewhere here, which means okay, so let me not mess up this figure. So let us now, instead of writing hard margin SVM, let me talk about soft margin SVM. So for that, what I'm saying is you take the original figure, let me add a couple of points which will make my data not linearly separable, right? So one here, perhaps one more here, and a negative point over here, right? So everything would have been fine if these three data points were not there. But with these 3 data points, I am now away from, so this particular, let us look at the 3 data points in isolation. So one data point is here. Okay, so let me choose a blue color for this. So this data point is here. So whereas it should have been all the way here, right? So this is like some kind of a violation, right? So this violation, I will call it as Xi1. Okay, so this is called as a Xi. So you just like you say Psi, right? You say Xi. Okay, so this is Xi1. So this is like the violation, how much I am deviating by. Okay, so similarly, I can have this point. This is Xi2. Okay, and the third point here, this should have been all the way here. So there is a Xi3. All these 3 numbers are positive. Okay, so what we are saying is there is a violation that is happening. It shouldn't have happened, but it is happening. So we are giving some tolerance. So what we will have in the original SVM was this. So just to emphasize that it is not too far. So this was the original SVM. Okay, so here. So now instead of saying that we have perfect this one, we will give a small like a variation for a few of them. Instead of being greater than 1, we will say it's being greater than 1 minus Xi. Okay, and you are allowing this tolerance, so you have to ensure that there are not too many of them. So you will put plus C times summation Xi. Okay, so here Xi's are greater than or equal to 0. So this one is called as soft margin SVM. So what that does is that it allows you for few points to be violating, right? So instead of being strictly greater than 1, you are doing 1 minus some positive number, and depending upon the range of that positive number, you can determine where the point lies. So for instance, very, very quickly, I don't want to take too much of your time. Suppose if Xi is less than 1, so where does the point lie?
Between the line and the
exactly, right? It will if the Xi is between this, then the point will either lie. Suppose if it is a Yi, for that point Yi is equal to plus 1, then the point will lie somewhere here. Okay, so similarly, if it's a negative point, so if Xij is less than 1, then and for Yj equal to minus 1, this point will lie somewhere here. Just put the number and see. So Xij is less than 1, so this is greater than not 1 but greater than 0, right? Some number greater than 0, right? So similarly, if Xi is greater than 2, then we are talking about completely in the wrong space. Do you understand this? So if Xi is greater than 2, then we are in the wrong space. So that point will be lying somewhere here or here. So this is a case where Xi is greater than 2. Okay. So do you understand how Xi's are controlling like you are allowing some points to fall in the wrong region. So that is what these Xi's are doing. Yes. So can I quickly check if people follow this much? Is it clear so far? Yes, no?
Sir, we mentioned in the usage that we anyways take the 0, the line corresponding to 0, W transpose X plus B. So even if it is between 1 and 2, then, if it is on the left side of the black line, then we are still in the wrong half space.
Yeah. Even if it's on the wrong half space, yeah. But at least what I'm saying is this is like a no man's land. So if you fall here, it's probably more acceptable than being completely in the other side, right? That's all I'm saying, Siddharth. So there is a difference between, I understand what you're saying. If it is a number less than 1, you are still okay. If it is greater than 1, you are in the wrong space. That's what you're saying, correct?
Yes, sir.
But I'm saying it is not just greater than 1. I'm saying any Xi is strictly greater than 0 is a problem. Because I wanted to separate with a margin. I wanted to have a clean region where nobody is residing, right? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
Sir,
Yeah.
this C.
So just 1 second. So for those of you who have followed the discussion so far, if you want to like drop from the call, it's fine. Yeah, Siddharth, you can continue.
Yes, sir. So, sir, this C, is it given or do we have to?
Yeah. So C is a parameter that you will control. So you think about, Siddharth, if we make C very big, what it will try to do?
Sir, actually, that's what my question is, that Zis are givens, right?
So Xis are not given. No. Xis are a part of optimization variable. So now you are doing over WB and Xis. Okay. How can Xis be given? I mean, how can I tell which points I am going to violate? Correct, Siddharth?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay. So Siddharth, since you have asked this question about C, so can you tell me, if I choose a very large value of C, what is going to happen?
It will penalize larger Zis very, very largely, and because of that, so it will still try to, if at all possible, it will still try to make all the points in the right half spaces.
Yes, perfect. Yes, perfect. Good, that is correct. So this is the understanding that I want you to get. Good, that is correct. All right. So if C's are 0, it will do the opposite. It will try to give as large margin as possible, no matter whether there are points are correctly done or not. Okay. So that is that useful thing that you should do. How do you choose C, Siddharth?
Sir, validation.
Exactly, validation. Nothing else you can do. Okay, good. All right. So any other questions? So the next class tomorrow we have to take the dual of this guy. Okay, and yeah, so it is not going to be as horrible, but we will do it. Okay. So
Sir, I had a doubt in hard margin SVM.
yeah, sure.
Sir, we were getting mu i's by solving the dual optimization problem, right?
Yes.
Sir, why can't we solve the primal itself if we are
Okay.
solving?
Yeah. So if very good. So you can use the primal and solve it, but there is a lot of wonderful things that you are getting due to dual. Okay. Tomorrow when we discuss kernel SVM, you will see. You will see that. It's a very good question, because primal is also QP. This is also QP. What is the benefit of going to dual? So tomorrow you will see. Good question.
Okay.
Please remind me, okay, if I'm not telling this. Of course I will tell it, but if I'm not, just remind me. Okay.
Sure, sir.
Yeah.
So I have a doubt.
Yeah.
So I understood the method how we find mu i's and the wi's. So
Yeah.
but will the margin be always equal to 1?
Yeah. So that yesterday when I told, right, it can be some epsilon, but I can always remove that epsilon by multiplying by some appropriate factor, right? So if I set up the problem like this, and then if I set up half W transpose W, it allows for any epsilon. I understand your question. See, yesterday when we did it, so we first started with the case that this is plus epsilon and this is minus epsilon. Do you remember?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And then I multiplied by 1 over epsilon and I made it plus 1 minus 1.
Yes, sir.
And that W and B, I'm optimizing over that space where the lines are necessarily plus 1 and minus 1. Okay. It's the setup it's the setup is ensuring that it works. Yeah, go ahead.
So the W star and the B star which we get, and the final boundary on which we are testing our model, so that isn't the real line, right? It separates it. We have to still multiply by an epsilon, right?
No. So there is an epsilon that if you want to put the epsilon, then we will have another epsilon coming in this equation. But what I have done is we have eliminated that epsilon and then set up the problem. Okay, the understanding is, so the way we have set up the problem, it always gives you 3 lines. One is W transpose X plus B equal to 0, W transpose X plus B equal to 1, W transpose X plus B equal to minus 1. We have set up the problem like this. If you put epsilon, then we'll have another epsilon lying here somewhere. In fact, why it has to be epsilon? It will be epsilon 1, epsilon 2, right? Different things can come. But we have systematically argued away each of the things. See, what I'm trying to say is, if there are n, so let's say there are 5 friends. You want to divide money amongst the 5 friends. You can think how much each person gets. or you can tell how many first 4 people get, because the 5th person is some function of the 4th. So that way you can optimize, right? Do you understand what I'm giving the analogy? In
Yes,
that
yes,
sense,
fine.
yeah, in that sense, we have, in the optimization problem, we have done away with the case where epsilon 1, epsilon 2 are different. Okay.
Yes, understood.
Okay. Okay, so are there any other questions? Just let me just stop recording. These are all good questions.